Welcome back to the next episode of The People Business. For more than 30 years, my guest today, Bob Burg, has been successfully showing entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals how to build relationships, communicate their value, and accelerate their business growth. Although for years he was best known for his sales classic, The Endless Referral System, it's his business parable, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, that has created a worldwide movement. While part of a 4-book series, The Go-Giver itself has sold well over 1 million copies and has been translated into 30 languages. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's list of most motivational books ever written and was HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob is founder of the Go-Giver Success Alliance, an online mentorship community for successful entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals, and he publishes the very popular Daily Impact email. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. And he's also an unapologetic animal fanatic and serves as part of the South Florida Rescue, Foster, and Adoption Organization. Welcome, the Hall of Famer, my friend and mentor, Bob Burg.
Hey, Frank, how are you, buddy? It's great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me.
My absolute pleasure.
So I remember reading The Go-Giver for the first time. And for me, and I don't know if I ever told you this, Bob, but I felt like I was kind of like flailing in life, kind of just existing, kind of like just watching the clock for time of my life. And it was like The Go-Giver, I read it and it kind of woke me up. And it woke me up out of like a coma of just mediocrity, so to speak. And, I had always felt at times like I was able to be a go-getter, but it was changing that philosophy and seeing the world through being a go-giver that really just changed everything for me. And, I just wanted to start off and ask you, like, where did the philosophy come from for you?
Yeah, well, it's hard to even imagine you knowing as I know now, knowing you as I know you now. It's hard to imagine anything having to do with Frank Favaro being mediocrity. So congratulations to you for everything you've done and all that you're accomplishing. You're accomplishing. You're an inspiration to so many of us. I think with me, it kind of began with my parents. I had great parents. I was very lucky. So I got to sort of see and just, live with people who acted this way. It's who they were, right?
Yeah, right.
So that was a good start in that regard. Of course, as you get into the business world, you see people doing things in different ways, and you see what works and what doesn't, and what you think shouldn't work but does, and should but doesn't, and so forth. And so you get to experience people doing things in certain ways. You certainly see a lot of go-takers out there who are out there just, for themselves. And you see sometimes they have some success, but most times they really didn't. And what I noticed was that the people who had success even in terms of just making a lot of money, and as well as feeling that sense of happiness and peace of mind and having great relationships, they seem to consistently be those people who are always looking out for the best interest of others. They weren't self-sacrificial. That had nothing to do with it. It's just that they always had other people's interest at heart, other people's well-being at heart. The greatest salespeople were the ones who took the time to really build relationships and understand and learn what that other person needed, wanted, desired, and their goal was to fulfill those needs. And as a result, the money came. And it's not that it took them longer than it took anyone else. In fact, it was shorter, because what they were doing is they were basically coming at it from a place of value. We always say with the go-giver, what does that really mean? It simply means understanding that when you can shift your focus, this is where it really begins. Shift your focus from getting to giving. Giving in this context meaning constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. People feel good about you, Frank. They feel great about you, right? They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell the world about you, or be what we call your personal walking ambassadors.
I love that. And it's true. Like I, and it's changing that focus, right? It's changing the lens at which you look at the world. It's because I think the majority of people out there in business today still look at the world through, I need to sell something, right? I need to get business. And that is very I focus, me focus. You're not creating value for the other person when you're thinking about yourself first, are you?
Well, it's not very effective
Yeah.
because here's the thing. And I used to say this when I would speak at sales conferences, right? It was one of the first things I'd say, and that is nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Okay. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money or because you would like the sale to happen. They're not even going to buy from you just because you're a nice human being. They're going to buy from you only because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's great. It's the only reason anyone should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. And this is great news for that entrepreneur or sales professional who really has a heart for wanting to make that other person's life better, right? Uh, and so, so that's the key. So when people say, well, yeah, this go-giver stuff, oh, that's fine for after I already have the money. No, that's how you're going to earn the money. Because if you go at it with, if you go into a sales conversation thinking, I want that commission, it it comes across. That's very hard to fake. Okay. You might ask the questions that you've been taught to ask, but are you really listening to kind of really know and understand? No, you're listening so that you can hopefully sharp angle them into a close. You're closing early and often. When they have an objection, you're a little bit defensive. Why? Because that objection's standing in the way of your money, right? And that comes across. And by the time you ask for the order, which you've probably done a bunch of times, well, that person doesn't really have a lot of trust in you, that you've got their well-being at heart. Now, you go in as a go-giver. By the way, being a go-giver doesn't mean you deny your self-interest. We're human beings. Of course, we're self-interested human beings. That's not, but what you do is you suspend your self-interest. You take your self-interest and put it to the side because that's not what your prospective client cares about. So when you ask those questions, you ask simply to be able to really get into their head and in their heart and know what they need, want, and desire. You're able to then be able to see certain areas where they might have a weakness they don't even know about, and you can then provide insights to help them strengthen that. Or you might see they have an opportunity that they don't even know they have, and you add your insight so that they can leverage that strength that they didn't know about. When they have an objection, you welcome it and you assure them it's okay they have that concern. But then what you do is, instead of just answering the objection as you've been taught to, well, if they say this, you say that because it might not even be the actual objection, because they may not exactly know what they're objecting to because they don't know the process like you do. Right. So they come up with the first thing that comes to their mind. So instead, what we do is we rather than trying to overcome the objection, we work within that objection in partnership with this person. And we dig deep and we discover what the true objection is. And then we work with them to help assure them and advance the sale. And by the time we ask them to take action, and by the way, our discovery was so good, right? The questions we asked, and now they basically told us what they were wanting, what they were looking for. Okay. Which at a certain point, in the sales conversation, we connected the benefits of what we sell with what they need, want, and desire. By the time we ask them to take action, we're simply asking them to take action on something they've already told us they want to do. Right. The big thing is, Frank, they understand we truly, genuinely have their well-being at heart. And this is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which means nothing more than that your authentic, genuine focus must be on bringing value to that person's life, their business, what have you. And the money you receive is simply a natural result, right, of the value you've provided.
You put a lot of great things there, and a lot of Yeah, and obviously to me it makes sense, but here's the thing about clients, and I was just in a meeting last week, and this happened, and it was people are not going to give you what's really going on in their life until they trust you,
Ah,
right?
exactly. Hmm.
So for me, it was eventually saying, my only purpose to be here today is to put you in a better situation than you're in. Like, and if I can't provide value that does that, then there's really no reason for me to be here. So, but the only way I can accomplish that is if we're transparent. And then he put everything down and changed his entire, approach, and then gave me what was really going on. But that wouldn't happen unless I, made sure he understood, like, hey, this is my intent. I'm not here to sell you anything. And I think a lot of times we see out there today, people want to try to bring value, but they're not trusted yet. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think one reason that happens, Frank, and one big reason is because they're understanding value from their own point of view, not the other person. See, price is a dollar figure, right? It's a dollar
Right.
amount. It's finite. It simply is what it is. Value, and this is so important, value is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, solution that provides so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly and gladly pay for that value while you make a very healthy profit? But here's the big thing. Value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's
Mhm.
not what we think is of value or what we think they should think
Right.
is of value. It's what they do. And that's why the way you came on and the way you presented and framed that situation was, it's really about what you want.
That's it.
If I'm the right solution, great. And if I'm not, that's also okay. But it's all about you and what you find to be of value. And when you do that and when you operate that way, your clients are going to warm up to you and they're going to trust you.
You taught me that, and you taught me that through. I think we had studied Harry Brown
Harry
and
Brown.
and happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is happiness is relative, meaning what brings me happiness is going to be completely opposite of what brings you
Absolutely. It
happiness.
could be. It could make you miserable. It could have no feelings at all, or could make you happy. Who knows? But because we operate from our own set of beliefs, our belief system, right? We kind of assume as human beings that everybody else thinks basically the same way we do, which makes sense, right? Because how could it be anything different? It's what we know. This is why you hear people say things. Oh, nobody likes that. Well, that's not true. You might not like that, and I might not like that, but that's not everybody. Some people love it, right? Or I would never speak that way to someone. No, you wouldn't, because that's not congruent with your value system, but other people, it's not. So, right. So, yeah, we always have to understand we are not our customer. What makes us happy, what would bring us happiness, or be of any kind of value to us, may or may not be to them. And that's our assignment to discover that.
Well, that leads me to when we were together, not last time, but the time before, and we talked about travel. And you
Right.
talked about, you said, everyone's idea of who loves to travel, right? And who,
Yeah, who just absolutely oh yeah,
yeah,
right.
and so, we had a few people raise our hands like, oh, I love travel. And then how many of you like to travel, every now and again? And it was few. And then who despises getting on an airplane and traveling, right? And it was you, right?
So in a small room. So this is like a
Right,
room of 12 people
right.
max. Three totally different answers. And here's the thing. The people who just love travel, and even maybe the ones who just love it a couple times a year or something, but the ones who just love, they can't understand how someone like me could despise it so much. But you get to go to exotic places and meet different people and see this and get it done. And I'm thinking, right? How could anybody want to disrupt their lives and pack and go to the airport and go through that flight, have to go to a different location and put your clothes away and stress out about this and blah blah blah, right? Two totally different ways of viewing the exact same experience.
Absolutely. And that's why we can't bring our personal biases of what we think
Ah,
is what
ah,
the
ah, ah.
customer thinks. It's It's understanding them. It's knowing who they are as a human being. What are they really after, right? What do they want? What do they desire? And how can I be valuable in helping them achieve
Mhm.
whatever that looks like, right?
Yep. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. So one of your mentors was Zig Ziglar, right?
I consider him to be a mentor through his books, through his back then it was tapes. I had the honor of, sharing the platform with him a number of times, or, maybe 5 or 6 years into my career, and then actually hosting him at an event, one of the last events he did before he passed. So yeah, I consider him one of those. I don't think he would think of himself as a mentor to me because he has so many people who just love him, but yeah, I definitely consider him as one of my mentors.
So I took my first sales job, and I didn't really look at it as selling. I was helping people get started on exercise programs and accomplish their fitness goals and their health goals. But we had very progressive owners of the company, and we would have meetings, sales meetings, and we would just listen to and watch Zig Ziglar videos and,
Ah,
and read Zig Ziglar books. And my an idea caught me. Like, I didn't get this idea, kind of grabbed hold of me. It was, you can have everything in life that you want if you help enough other people get what they want, right? And
beautiful.
that stuck with me. And I was like, wow. So if I can help them get what they want as a byproduct, I'll achieve what I want. And I took that. And that's been kind of like, you know, I live by three quotes, right? That quote with Zig Ziglar, your golden rule of networking quote, which we'll get to in a moment. And then Dale Carnegie's quote about, you can build more friends and business contacts in 2 months by being interested in others than you could in 2 years by trying to get others interested in you.
All right.
Like those are like my three, and every presentation I pretty much do in training, I share those quotes.
Yeah.
But with Zig Ziglar,
Thank you for including mine. I appreciate
well,
that.
it's we'll talk about
Those are two legends that I'm
yeah.
happy to be included with.
Well, to me, you're up there. You're on the Mount Rushmore. So, but when we think about Zig's quote, and was that one that stuck with you also?
Oh yeah, that was one of those first ones. Never forget he had that great Yazoo City, Mississippi accent. So you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And I remember the first tapes here again, tapes, not even say tapes. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And I think I listened to it like 16 times in a row, that whole album. While I was on the road driving to sales appointments and it was wonderful. But yeah, that saying of his is actually the ultimate embodiment of free market capitalism and why it works. Uh, when not hindered by red tape and all the unnecessary bureaucracy and all the whatever, because it says that the consumer is king,
Mm-hmm.
which by the way is what Adam Smith was all about. He was not pro-business, he was pro-consumer.
Hmm.
When you're pro-consumer, the businesses that are able to please the consumer are the ones that succeed and
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of money. So in a free market-based situation, simply meaning no one's forced to do
Right.
business with anyone else, right? The only way you can make a lot of money is by providing immense value to the lives of lots and lots of people. So to me, that was really a great summation of the Go Giver book. I think I found great inspiration in Zig's quote.
So you did. I saw a video of you once, and you were on stage. Was it Zig's last time up on stage, or
So it was one of the last ones that Zig he had suffered with a brain injury from falling down a flight of stairs, and so sad, but he was so brave, and he wanted to, even though his short-term memory was pretty much lost, and so he would repeat himself often. He still knew that his message was so important, and he wanted people to see him fighting through a challenge as he had talked about. And so his daughter Julie or his son Tom would go on stage with him for that last, I think, couple of years or so, if I'm right about that. And they would kind of keep him on track and so forth. Well, at this one, he had come because we were giving him the first lifetime achievement, Go Giver lifetime achievement. award. John David Mann, my awesome co-author, presented it with me to Zig. So it was Zig, his son Tom, and his wife, the famous redhead that he
Right, right.
about. And she told me afterwards, Mrs. Ziegler told me afterwards that that was the first time she'd ever been on stage with Zig.
Oh,
So that
wow.
always just touched my heart, knowing that, at that. But here's the thing, Frank. So this was an event I used to put on. This was, I think it was a 3-day event we used to hold with lots of speakers, outside speakers we'd bring in. We do this once a year. And of course the highlight was Zig, even though he did answer questions on stage, but he didn't, but afterwards, he, Mrs. Ziegler and Tom sat for hours signing autographs, taking pictures, giving hugs, talking with people, answering questions. I got more emails after that event that was the absolute highlight, seeing how genuine the Ziegler family, how kind and how warm they were, just as they'd heard on his tapes or seen him from a distance at a seminar or what have you. They were just a beautiful family. And Tom and Julie and Cindy, his siblings, they're carrying on the Zig Ziglar legacy to this day, doing a wonderful job.
I receive Tom's emails every day.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
And, it's, well, that genuineness, that authenticity, which that's really what attracted me to the Go-Giver, was that. And, you know, and I share that, like, this is my second favorite quote, when we look at all things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people that they know, like, and trust, right? Did I say it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna make sure. I know I know that, but that's a quote that gets thrown around loosely today. I've heard people talk about it, and it does make sense. Like, it has to be correct because that first part is very important, isn't it?
Yeah, and what happens is people usually, unfortunately, do leave out that first part. They'll just say something like, people like to do business with people they know, like, well, people like to do a lot of things. I'd like to eat 10 Sundays in a row, but ice cream, so it's not really just that they like to do
Right.
business, and or they'll say, they'll have it's really that whole thing. It's all things being equal. And the reason why, and by the way, some people say, well, all things are never totally equal. No, but they're close enough to equal.
Sure.
Okay. And so if things aren't equal, then it isn't just a matter of the relationship. If somebody needs something delivered in 10 days and the people they know, like, and trust can't deliver it in 30 until 30 days, well, it's going to probably go to the account's going to go to the person who can deliver it in 10 days because, or if the price is so significantly different without the quality being different, well, yeah, it's going to, or, what have you. There's a lot of variables. It's when all things are equal or close enough to being equal. Okay. Then it's the relationship. That's when people will do business with and or refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. So yeah, that first part is very, very important.
Huge. And think about that, and all things being equal. Well, what's that mean? Well, it's all things. That could be price, that could be, time, like you just said. And when we really break that quote even down further, and I love these three pieces that know. So being known, right? And I've asked this question to a lot of people, and I want to ask it to you. What's more important? Is it if you had to choose one? Is it the people that you know, or is it the people who know you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key. It's do they know you? And by the way, that could be directly, but it can also be very indirectly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, your reputation precedes you. And when people start talking about, when people are your personal walking ambassador, the word gets around about you. And that's when you start getting these calls or emails or what have you, or visits to your site or whatever it happens to be, saying, oh, so-and-so said you're the only person I need to talk to about my blah, 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 blah. And then it's really cool when you don't even recognize who so-and-so is, who referred you, right? Because again, your reputation is carried that far. So yes, it's not necessarily just who you know, and that's good, but it's who knows you and what you do when they or someone they know needs your products or services.
So you go from no and then like, right? That's a big
Uh-huh.
jump because now we have there's
Yeah.
a I like someone that, and that emotional
Mhm.
attachment piece with like and trust, right, is everything, right? Because
Yeah.
that's where you can really separate yourself from everyone else out there who does what you do. So when you talk about like, that is the enjoyability factor, that's the relationship, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and likability is important. Despite I've heard people say, "Well, the like doesn't matter if you're giving them the information and you've got to be ready to not be liked." And it's not that. It's that no, you've got being liked doesn't mean you're not telling the truth or being honest with them or being no, but you can do it in a tactful way, right? You can be liked and you can present what you need to say in a way that doesn't necessarily. Yeah, when people say, "Well, I take pride in being brutally honest," usually they're more interested in being brutal than they are in being honest. Okay, so no, honesty is important. You've got to counselor, as a sales professional, you've got to be able to let a person know when they're not on the right track because it's not serving them. And you can do it with tact and kindness and diplomacy and in such a way that you help them feel genuinely good about themselves and good about you and not bad. Okay, so no, likability is very important. And I think trust is, when there's any decision of any significance, so I'm not talking about buying a candy bar, but when
Right.
there's a buying decision of any kind of significance, where any type of potential loss is involved, right, as well as gain, they've got to trust you, and it's not just trust that you're a good person or trust it's trust both in character and competence. Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of Dr. Stephen Covey of Seven Habits, Stephen M.R. Covey has this classic book, The Speed of Trust. I used to quote it from stage all the time when I was traveling and on stages. I keep forgetting that I don't really travel anymore. but I'd hold that book up all the time and read several quotes from it about trust. But it's not just character; it's also competence. It's not just competence; it's also character. You've
Mhm.
got to be able to earn that trust and be able to communicate that, for that other person.
And each individual, it takes a different amount of time to potentially earn trust, right?
Sure, exactly, exactly. You can lose it in a split second, but it can take time to develop, and it doesn't have to take a long time. And you can actually start to develop it in that first conversation, but it's not going to reach its peak, and until it's supposed to reach its peak again, depending upon the situation. Um, but yeah, I always say, and people say, well, when you're developing a relationship with someone, how long is it until, you really have earned that know, like, and trust to be able to, is it, 6 months? Is it 6 weeks? Is it 6 days? Is it a year? Is it 3 months? Is it 7 months, 2 days? And the answer is yes, because you don't know. It could be 2 days, could be a couple times you meet, but it's once you know, and you don't always know, but you can usually sense, and that person knows you, likes you, and trusts you. At that point, business can really take place. Anytime before then, the chances are not as good.
And the more that you are able to do that, you ultimately start to make price less relevant in some
Oh,
cases and then
absolutely.
irrelevant in others, right?
Yeah, because the whole idea anyway, and is that you want to, when you sell on low price, you're positioned as a commodity.
Yes.
When you sell on high value, you're positioned as a resource, right? So that's really always what we want to do. We don't want to sell on low price, unless your last name is Walmart or Amazon.com, trying to make low price your unique selling proposition. Well, it's not unique. It's certainly not selling, and it's hardly a proposition. Okay. No, you need to be able to sell on value. And when you do that and you're able to communicate that value, again, not through necessarily what you say, but through the questions you ask and how that's when you've created that what we call benevolent context for your success.
In my experience, it's always seemed like trust, you need some adversity to earn some trust. You need, some to really see, when you're up against it and you have some problems, Like when I wrote that article that you shared so gracefully, it was I screwed up, like I dropped the ball big time, and like now I'm really proving like can you trust me, right?
Right.
How can I respond? Can I earn it back? What can I do to rebuild myself and to bring more value than I ever had prior? And sometimes I think you have to have some adversity because when it's all sunshine and rainbows you really don't know a person, do you?
Sure. No, of course not. Absolutely. I think you bring up a great point. It's also why the customer experience is so very important, or let's say a culture of great customer
Mm.
experience, because every so often something is going to go wrong and someone's going to be unhappy and they're going to come to you and they're going to say, or to that person or whoever it is, and they're going to say, I can't. And depending upon how it's handled, you know, again, tactfully, kindly, diplomatically, in a solution oriented way, you can't always give that person what they want. And the customer's not always right. Sometimes they're very wrong, but they're your customer and they're a human being. Okay. So to the degree that you handle it in a wonderful, life affirming way, that's the degree that relationship's probably going to be stronger and you're going to have a much more loyal customer. Now, the way you handle that situation from that article, had you tried to in some way shifted blame or made an excuse or whatever, that would have totally destroyed any trust that was still, remaining. But you didn't. You took full responsibility. You let them know exactly what happened and what you would try to do in order to make things right. And you set about doing exactly that. As a result, they're looking at Frank Favaro as someone, oh, wow, okay, he's human, but boy, this guy, he cares. And he's going to take great care of us. And from now on, this is going to be right. So, yeah, that was just absolutely perfect. And a lot of people commented on that article that touched a lot of people's lives.
Well, I think it all comes back to, being a go-giver. I mean, that's what being a go-giver is all about. It's putting the other person first and then doing everything within one's power to make it right, make it work, right?
Hmm.
So, with that being the case, it's just, it's everything I learned from you. So,
Well, I think you were well on your way before that, but thank you. I I accept your compliment with gratitude. I receive it with gratitude.
uh, well, you talk about tact, and I forget what book you said it in, but it was you called it the language of strength.
Actually, that was my dad's quote. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he always
Wow.
said that. Tact is the language of strength.
Oh, I
Uh,
love
and
that.
I and I love that. And the reason why I love that so much is because sometimes you've got to be strong to not just react as opposed to respond, right? That person says or does something that really hits your emotional hut buttons and causes you to, right? But, the person who's strong, the sages said, who is a mighty person? That person who can control their own emotions and make of an enemy or of a potential enemy a friend. So that takes strength to be able to do that. And that's tact. Tact, I guess, in a sense, could really be defined as communicating an idea to someone that they ordinarily would not be receptive to, right? But doing it in such a way that not only are they not defensive toward you and toward the idea, but they're open to you and your idea. And when you can do that, that's really the ultimate in people skills. And I'm a big believer that people skills are the differentiator between the successful person and the stratospherically successful person. Because as important as talent is and hard work is and product knowledge, and they are, make no mistake, they're very important. Without it, you're not even in the game.
Right.
Okay. But with those things, you're only in the game. And there are a lot of people who are talented, who work hard, who learn their product, who, all the things that we need to do. It's that person who's able to successfully, effectively work with and deal with other human beings. Those are the people who rise to the top.
Well, it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, Harvard's it was Dr. Gerald Zaltman did a study with Harvard, and 96% of buying decisions are subconscious, and that's feel, right? It's
That,
how we make people feel, and those people skills that you're talking about. It's how we are able to communicate, and how I make you feel during that process, right? And if you can make me feel good about something, and do it tactfully and respectfully
Hmm.
with empathy, and whatever that situation feels like, then I'm going to feel really good about giving you my money.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, ultimately, and I've never been a fan of those being called soft skills.
Me neither. Me neither. I think that's such a misnomer. Yeah, I agree with you totally. Nothing soft about them.
No, no.
They are some of the hardest things for people to learn, actually.
And I'm still every single day trying to improve at
Me
them,
too. Absolutely.
every single day.
Ongoing process.
So I had in preparation for our talk today, I reached out to some of my colleagues and partners and asked them. I have the great Bob Burg on. I've given you a copy of The Go-Giver, and you've read it, right? What if you could ask Bob Burg one question? What would it be? And I got a ton of questions, but to pick three or maybe two, depending because we're running out of time. But I'm gonna ask you three questions, and these came from my partners, colleagues, customers, friends, all the above. You ready?
It's nice to know there's people who want to ask me questions.
There are definitely people that want to ask you questions. All right. Let me start here. So, what is the greatest success story from someone or one that's because I understand there's probably so many, but one that jumps out at you, a great success story from someone who's read the book that you're maybe most proud of.
It's actually easy for me to come up with this one. And
Okay.
the reason is, and this is not the person who probably made the most money from it or not the sexiest or anything like that. It's just to me, it's an absolute look at the shift in focus that comes from this and what can result. So when the Go Giver first came out years ago, it was in the midst of the, financial crisis. And this person emailed that he is a roofer. He owned a roofing company. Okay. So he repaired people's roofs. So during the financial crisis, and this was outside the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, at this time, the roofing business just took a big hit, like many other businesses. People just, didn't feel comfortable investing the money and the whole thing with the insurance and this and that and the whole thing. And so he did what every other roofer did, and that was kind of pull back on the value he was providing because he was trying to, save money and and they read the book, he read The Go-Giver. And he said, I'm going about this all wrong. He said, I need to find ways to add more value. So what he did is he did an intensive study on the insurance aspect of roofing. And he found a way to navigate the process with the insurance companies that would make it so the homeowners would get reimbursed
Hmm.
quickly as possible. So now when he was knocking on doors, making calls, so forth, like he wasn't asking, do you want your roof repaired? He knew they did. It was just the people weren't doing it. It was, I can show you how to navigate the insurance situation so that you can get your money reimbursed to you within, whatever it would be. Boom. His business just soared. Okay. Didn't cost him any extra money to do it. It cost him some time. I mean, it was an investment of time, of course. But he learned it, he figured it out, and he passed that along to his homeowners. So now he could offer them value over and above what his competitors were doing.
That is awesome. So such a just so simple. Didn't take any, but just a different way of thinking of how could I be more valuable? How could I do something that no one else is doing, right? And as a result of that, that is so cool. That's a great one. I can see why you picked that one.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, you ready? I got another one for you.
Okay.
All right. What do you say to the skeptics, the go takers, maybe we would call them,
Sure.
just don't understand how this could be a way of life or a way of doing business?
Yeah. So we always have to remember, as we talked about earlier, that people operate from their own set of beliefs, and this is it's always a belief system they were handed.
Mm,
Usually at a very young age. It's um, upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, right? But by the time you're pretty young, you've got the basics in your belief system pretty much set in there, and that's how you live your life. And so somebody grows up believing that, business is dog eat dog. If there's a winner, someone has to lose. If you want to be good in sales, you just have to focus on the money and say and do anything. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
and sometimes, by the way, it's not that these people will do anything dishonest. It's just that they see everything on the competitive plane, win, lose, and so forth. And so they just have, they're not necessarily, bad people. It's just their mindset. It's just how they see the world. Now, if you try to persuade them otherwise, a lot of times because it's they learn this emotionally, logic isn't going to necessarily do it. And so that's why having a relationship with that person is so important, because first, again, if they don't understand that there's a problem, then they're not going to take steps to solve that problem. Okay. So we've got to be able to have a relationship with that person and say, and be able to genuinely say, I admire so much about you. You're hardworking. You have wonderful knowledge. You blah, blah, and so forth. If there was something, that I could share with you that I think might help you be even more successful than you are now, would you be opposed to that? So you've done this in such a way, you've given them the out or back door, you were tactful, you were kind, and now, it's up to them to say, no, go ahead, sure. And who wouldn't, the way you've just, said it. Okay?
Absolutely.
So now you can share with them. And we, by the way, alluded to this a little earlier, but here's where you have a conversation with them. When you talk to them about this go-giver way of doing things, which simply means understanding that nobody's going to do business with you because you want the money in this case, because you want. And so I would take them through a conversation. I'd say, let's say I'm the salesperson and you're the prospect. We're about to have a sales conversation, and I'm someone who all I care about is the money. That's the idea of and then you go through the thing about how you're not really interested in them, just the money, how you are not really listening, and how it really doesn't earn trust. Right. Then you say, okay, let's say I'm the same person, but now I'm going to put my self-interest to the side. I'm going to totally focus on giving you great value throughout this conversation. And then you go through how you ask questions, how you work within the objection, how you do. And then you say, which of these people are more likely to have enough trust in us to invest their money with us, or to spend their money with us, or to buy from us. So this person, this go-taker, needs to see that it's actually in their best interest to put the other person's interests first. But it begins with a relationship, and you've got to be able to have enough of a know, like, and trust with that, where they feel that way about you, that they will even listen to you,
Right.
For the skeptic to even listen to you.
So much value there. And I think that might be the hardest part is having that, because that type of person probably hasn't invested in many relationships.
Exactly.
Right. So it's taking the time to invest in them, and doing it in a way where there's no ulterior motive other than to
exactly
bring value. So I love that. That's a great answer. Thank you for that. That one helped me a ton too. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So my last one for you. Ready? Drum roll. This comes from a younger gentleman who is probably, I would say, 2 years into his sales career. I have a hard time getting my foot in the door, is what he said. I believe in the go-giver mindset and creating value, but how can I differentiate myself enough to get attention?
So the part where he says, I believe in the go-giver, in that way, but how can it's almost as though he's thinking it's two different things.
Okay.
And it's not. And maybe he didn't, by the way, mean it that way. It might just be how he phrased it. Okay. But what I'm thinking is sometimes when people say that, what they mean is they feel it's not go-giverish to call people, prospect, do all those things as though you're supposed to wait just until like good things had, just do good deeds and good things. And that has nothing to do with being a go-giver. Okay. Um, Being a go-giver again simply means your focus is on providing immense value to others. So what you have to ask yourself in terms of getting your foot in the door is how can you add value to people's lives before they even consider the idea of doing business with you?
Mhm.
And there are many, many ways to do that. I don't know this person's particular, their industry and what they do and what would it be. But what you've got to find ways to do is start creating a network of people who know you, who like you, who trust you, who will introduce you to people. Put things together that whether it's videos or a report or something where this person sees value from you up front, right? And causes them to want to get to know you better. Again, I'm being very general with this because I don't know what his, exact work is. So, but
Yeah.
that's basically how you do it. But
Well,
there's
knowing
nothing.
this person, I think they have a bad habit of trying to sell something before even really knowing the other person, having a relationship, earning trust, right? So
Mhm.
that would make sense. Bob, thank you so much. What a great conversation with you today. I appreciate you and everything you've done for me, and it was great having you on today.
Frank, it's always a joy for me to be able to visit with you and speak with you, and I learn a lot from you. And as I said earlier, you've been a big inspiration to many of us.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Till next time, Bob, anything else you want to say sales wise before we end? I forgot to say, can you real fast just give a quick what is sales wise the conference that you have coming up and why should it be something people attend?
Yeah, it's a 2-day sales event that we're holding in at the beautiful Ben Hotel in West Palm Beach. It's going to be 2 days of real fun, but really intense, and it's really designed for the already successful salesperson and entrepreneur who wants to take their business to that next level of
Mhm.
success. And it's really going to be 2 very powerful, impactful days. I'm doing this along with Jeff West and Kim Angeli, who are just fantastic.
Yeah,
And I just invite people to go to the website saleswiselive.com, and they can check it out. And if they have any questions, they can let us know. But we'd love to have you with us.
that is excellent. I'm thinking about going and hopefully I'm going to be able to make it. And what are the dates again?
It's all day, June 3rd and June 4th,
Okay.
where they get together for everybody the night before, where we're having a really cool Dixieland band, and
Oh,
and that will be on Sunday night, June 2nd.
well, Kim and Jeff are just powerhouses, and you and like, so yeah, that would be an absolute home run. So I highly recommend it. I've been to Bob's trainings before. I've worked with Jeff and Kim also and collaborated with them, and they were amazing also.
They
So,
really are. Yeah.
yeah, they really are. So it's going to be a great event. So, Bob, thank you so much again. And till next time, everyone.